Hey, hi, Dr. Jordan. How are you?
Hello. Oh, no, very well. And yourself?
Doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
I was looking over your bio, and there's a lot of information there that we're just not going to be able to even cut the surface in 15 minutes of an interview.
Okay.
But I did want to hit a couple of your talking points, and I know you have a book to promote.
hmm
The first one, how do you define love? That's a big question.
Uh-huh. Right. In my book, right from the start, I differentiate between love and love relationship. My book is about love relationship. Love itself, in my opinion, is an emotion that is unpredictable, uncontrollable. Um, it's psychological, physical, spiritual in origin, and it's perhaps one of the things left in human experience that's uncontrollable. So, in that sense, it's a mystery. Love relationship, or how we relate when we're in love, that's a different story. That's something that can be modified, changed. You can become aware of it, and that's what the book's about.
Okay, so you're saying that the actual emotion of love is something that we have no control over.
Yeah, it comes and goes. You can't make someone love you. That's the idea. How you relate to someone you love, that can be changed.
Okay, and
Once you
by the same
But
token, you can't choose who you fall in love with.
true. I would agree with that. Absolutely.
Okay, but you can. What you're saying is you can control how you behave or relate with the person that you feel love for. Is that correct?
Exactly. Exactly. And part of the problem and the reason why I wrote the book is that I was, working with a lot of people who are not in control of their love lives. And the reason and the evidence for that was the amount of repetition, repeating love life disappointments, people that reached a point of resignation after a number of hurt relationships. So I realized that the problem is that a lot of people are not aware of what they've learned about love relationships, and that's primarily because it's unconscious. We learn lessons about love relationships from the relationship experiences we have in life. And as I said, it's pretty much an unconscious process. But here's the good news. Once you become aware of what these relationship experiences have taught you, especially the ones that get into your love life and become repetitive, then you have an opportunity to make change.
I don't think anybody is really prepared to enter into a love relationship. I mean, there's not classes in high school that teach what you're supposed to do
You've
when
noticed
you fall in love.
that. Yeah,
And
right.
you
That's a
know, a lot
problem.
of yeah, that is a problem, and a lot of parents are not necessarily the best teachers for their children for what are you going to do when you get older and you fall in love. Some are very good, but
You've
some
noticed
are
you've
are
noticed that
terrible.
too, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes what they teach is not taught in terms of a classroom or even verbalized. It's taught by experience. It's taught through observation. You grow up in a home where mom and dad fight all the time, you learn things about love relationships from that experience. And that's what I found in my work is that people were replicating a lot of the relationship experiences, unfortunately, a lot of them unhealthy, that they experienced earlier in life. And becoming aware of it again is an opportunity to make change. Unaware, it gets replicated over and over and over again, tragically, in many instances.
So why do we behave differently with people we're in love with than with people we're not in love with?
Oh, yes. Well, love as an emotion has a lot to do with wanting to unite with someone, wanting to be together, needing that person. I mean, we're fundamentally social creatures, and love is an experience in that social behavior that involves togetherness, um, desire. So I think that already sets the stage for a different level of meaning and emotion. Um, and this is supposed to be a good thing, you know? This is supposed to be an advantage of being human. unfortunately, like you pointed out very accurately, we don't get educated in terms of love life issues. You know, I want to tell you a small story. A very famous psychologist, educator by the name of Buscaglia, Leo Buscaglia, in California back in the early 70s. He was teaching a course at UCLA Berkeley, and one of his students, one of his female students, committed suicide. He was very disturbed by that and realized that love life issues are very important because, as I understand, that was part of the reason she committed suicide, a loss in a relationship, breakup, something like that. So he went to the administration at UCLA and said, I want to teach a love life course. He called it Love Class. And they laughed. Leo, don't you have anything better to do? That's not scientific, so on and so on. And he persisted. They gave him a classroom with no credit. And they said, okay, Leo, you can teach it under these conditions. 100 students applied for that course for 4 years straight. And he wrote a series of books about the relationship between love and learning as a consequence of that experience. But to me, that indicated the need for this. We don't offer it as a part of a curricula, okay, but I think we need it.
Wasn't Dr. Kinsey trying to do something like this
Uh,
many years ago?
I thought his purpose was more recording what exists, the behavioral patterns and what goes on uh, behind the
His
scenes.
his was more about sex rather than about love, yeah?
Yeah, that's sex is a wonderful gymnastic activity that people in love enjoy immensely, but love relationship is on another level.
That's true. I've always thought that they were two separate entities that could come together.
Yeah, as an expression of intimacy,
Yeah.
as one expression of love, but there are others. You know, how people communicate to each other, how they work together as a partnership. Um, the level of friendship in a love relationship is important, I find. Um, so there's different expressions.
Can you give an example, maybe from your book or something? Where do you start with this? Where do you start with people? I don't want to go into the marriage counseling route with
Yeah.
this question, but if you were going to give that class, let's say the class that you had just explained,
Uh-huh.
where would you start with that? What would be your first
Well,
approach to it?
I would introduce the idea that we all have a psychological love life, and I talk about this in the book. Psychological love life is the mental representation we have in our minds that shapes our love life experience. We all have one. Um, Unfortunately, it can be unhealthy because a very important part of our psychological love life is what we've learned from the relationship experiences we've had in our lives. And for most people, it's unconscious. You're not aware of it. You don't quite know what's in it. Um, so becoming aware that that you have a psychological love life would be the first step. Um, and most people are curious. Okay, if I have a psychological love life, what's in it? I want to know what's in control of my love life. I want to know how my love life is being shaped from the inside out. Um, and then once that curiosity begins, the first step would be to identify what's in your psychological love life. Um, and the way people do that, one of the important ways people do that is usually when something's going bad or some disappointment is repetitive in a person's life. Say, for example, they find the same kind of person over and over again, same kind of disappointment. I'll give you an example of that. I often see patients that grew up in a home where a parent abandoned the family, for example, and they find a string of unavailable partners. And at some point or another in the treatment, they become aware that there's a connection between the abandonment that they experienced early in life and the unavailability of partners that they find. And that's a very important moment when a person makes that connection, past to present, because the consciousness of this problem empowers a person to be able to make change. And then, and I see this in a three-step process. First step is to identify, as I described. The second step is to challenge this automatic psychological love life that shapes our love life experience. And people have the ability to challenge the patterns of experience that they find within their own minds. So once a person becomes aware of something, like, for example, seeking out unavailable people because it's familiar. And interesting that the root of the word familiar is family, what's learned in the family. So once they become aware of it, they can strengthen their ability to challenge this automatic, unconscious process that is in control of their love lives and disrupt it. Disrupt it by realizing it's unhealthy, disrupt it by questioning it, by showing an effortful interest in what's going on in their love lives, becoming as conscious as possible of what's going on in their love lives. And the third step is to practice creating relationship experiences going forward that are healthier. For example, if I've unfortunately seen a lot of people who have had abusive experiences growing up and unfortunately found repeating abusive relationships as a consequence. So at this third stage that I described, I would want a person to begin realizing that there's a healthier relationship that would involve seeking out the opposite of what they've learned. And the opposite of abuse is obviously respect. So a person would become sensitized to the reality that respectful relationships in love are healthier. And being able to have that as something that they work on, that they look for, that they become aware of, begins to shift their love life in a healthier direction.
Is there one particular thing that you see over and over again with couples that are having issues, marital issues, problems, relationship issues? Is there one, or is it vast?
Well, there are quite a few, but there are a few that are at the top of the list. The first one, the most important in my perspective, is communication. Communication is the number one issue when there's problems in a love relationship, because oftentimes when problems exist, people stop talking to each other. They start talking at each other, or they break down the communication entirely. So rebuilding communication, which involves letting your partner know what you need and what you feel, and also listening to what your partner's needs and feelings are, is a fundamental first step in getting the relationship back on the level of growing again. And communication is essential in the long term because it's really the way in which two people in love solve problems. A love relationship essentially has to be worked on. It's not something, you fall in love, heart and flowers, everything's cool and never a problem. Two personalities, there's going to be disagreement, there's going to be differences, but it's how people communicate to each other about those differences that makes it possible to evolve a relationship that permits that marriage or committed relationship to grow.
Do you think it's fair for one partner to try to change the other partner?
No, no. And if you read my book, you get a good dose of why I disagree with changing people. People don't change because you want them to. They change because they want to. So when you try to change someone in a relationship, you get what I call R&R, and that's not rest and relaxation. It's resistance and resentment. That's a big problem in a relationship. Oftentimes people looking for a relationship, they might meet someone who, for example, has a lot of checks, like a lot of qualities that the person's looking for, except for this big one over here. Oh, I'll love them and they'll change. I'll change the person over the course of time. And that I find that kind of hope, that kind of desire to change the other person is usually turns into a misery at some point. It doesn't work. An old friend of mine once said to me that the secret to a healthy, enduring relationship is to find someone whose faults you can live with. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. I think that's a good note to end on because we do have to wrap up this interview. Do you have
Okay.
a website that you want to give out to people
Yes, I
can come
do.
take a look at?
Lovelifelearningcenter.com. It's a blog and a website combination. Yeah. Um, I'm also at 212-875-0154. That's my office. My wife and I offer love life consultations for people that want a little support going through this kind of change.
Okay, and you're in the New York City area?
Yes, Upper West Side, Manhattan.
Upper West Side, super. Well, Dr. Jordan, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was very enlightening talking to you. I know we could have gone on for quite a bit
All right.
longer. Best of
All right.
luck with your book. I
All
hope